Alrighty, time for this week's Dollar Dialogue. And today we're going to have a bit of a general chat about the savings account market and how it's changed recently, particularly with a lot of people swinging away from those conditional bonus savings account products towards some of those more, back to basic, no hoops, no conditions, savings account rates such as the ones offered by AMP Bank Go at the moment. Essentially, it's a way to get a good interest rate without having to jump through hoops. And joining us to discuss is the director of AMP Bank Go, John Arnott. G'day, John. Thanks for joining us on the Savings Tip Jar.
Thanks, Don. Great to be here.
Before we get into our chat, John, I just need to ask you, what is your savings tip?
I think my savings tip is really about stay close to your savings. I think in an environment now where people really value their savings, they want to make them work hard, stay across the savings, be across the rate you're getting, be across what behaviors or what kind of the features of the product are, so you can really get the maximum value from it. So I used to probably keep your savings apart, keep them hidden, keep them on the side, but I'm saying get close to them now so you really know what you're getting.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a really good tip, actually, for what we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly in in a market when interest rates are changing. At the moment they're going up. What you thought was a good deal at the time you first signed up for the product might not be, because you might not have received a rate hike, and others might have moved up. There might be new products on the market, such as the one from you guys. We were quite excited when we saw this one launch on the market, because we've been really craving these types of products, because we've been sort of getting over all the hoops you have to jump through with some of these other products, and it does seem like people are crying out for more of these no conditions savings account rates. So at the time of recording, you guys are offering 4.85%.
That's right.
With no deposit or withdrawal conditions, no minimum balance to earn the interest. Are you guys finding there's a lot of demand and a lot of praise for this product in this current market, where people are craving that sort of financial minimalism, without having to worry about conditions and whatnot?
Yeah, totally, Dom. I think we're seeing that people are really looking for two things. They're looking for value, but they're also looking for flexibility. And I think what the AMP Bank Go product does is deliver that. I think often in the past or in the broader market, you kind of get one or the other. You can get good rates, but you get conditions and not flexibility, or you get full flexibility and probably not the kind of same kind of reward or interest that you get through the AMP Bank Go product. So I think it's important that we strike both. And I think for Australians today, it's so important. I mean, we're in a cost of living crisis. People's savings behaviours that they've had in the past are not necessarily what they are today. It may well people in the past have had more confidence they can put more stuff aside for savings. But now people are saying, actually, I'm going to put my savings, I'm still going to discipline, I'm still going to budget, put money into my savings account. But based on the broader environment, it could be the cost of fuel, today or yesterday. People might need to eat into that savings to be able to kind of meet their kind of daily ends meet. And for them to be able to do that and not be arguably penalised for doing so is really important. So I think we're flowing where customers want us to go. And what's kind of somewhat interesting is we're almost going back to where we were probably in the 2000s, when this kind of concept of a high interest online savings account came about. And that was all about saying, do you know what? You don't need to go to a branch to manage your savings. You can offer one online. Because there's no branch, there's a kind of lower cost to the product, so you can give customers better rates, but it still had that flexibility. Rightly or wrongly, over the last 10 years, we've seen this emergence of conditions or hurdles that customers need to jump through. And I think it was really telling when we saw a report from the ACCC that said only 30% of Australians are actually getting the rate or the maximum rate on those products, because 70% are not actually meeting those conditions or hurdles, which is not that surprising given the life that we all live today.
Yes, that ACCC report, I think it came out in December 2023, and
That's
it did
right.
shed a bit of light on, how bad that was. I mean, really, that figure, I think it was, 71% of people weren't getting the best rate on their savings. And I think that shocked people in that study period that they did. And I have to say, I enjoy writing about savings products, and I sort of keep a track of the market. And it seems the most successful savings products since that report particularly have been ones like your own, where we just let go of the complications. Has that been something that AMP Bank was conscious of at the time they decided to launch Go Save?
Yeah, totally, Denise. I think, where we're coming from is we want to be able to kind of reduce the mental load of savings. I, sometimes refer to it as take the BS out of savings. Consumers or Australians and small businesses, they've got busy lives to live. And removing the need for them to have to think about, have I done this? How will I do that before the end of the month to be able to unlock that rate? We recognise that that's requires a pretty high level of financial literacy, and equally an amount of time from consumers when, rightly or wrongly, they've got bigger or more important things to worry about. So how do we make it easy? How do we make it customer first? And we're seeing really strong demand. People are prepared to say not always get the best rates, knowing that actually they might pay 0.1%, they get paid 1.1% less, knowing that they're going to get that full flexibility. And one thing we found at AMP Bank Go is we've done some research recently is 7 out of 10 Australians actually don't trust the banks and their savings rates. They don't trust that the rate they're seeing is the rate that they're getting. They don't trust that the banks are not going to kind of behind the scenes make changes to those rates. And we wanted to address that. We wanted to make sure we're really clear on how customers are feeling about savings. We want to encourage saving, which I think is a really good financial discipline. But we wanted to encourage saving, but without penalising withdrawing or putting too many catches and increasing that mental load, which I said is a really kind of real challenge right now for Australians around the amount of things they need to think about. And we want to kind of keep banking close, but not too close, so Australians can get on with living their lives.
Yeah, absolutely, John. I back when I was saving up to buy my house, and I had a lot of money, my deposit savings sat in savings accounts. That mental load really took a load on me,
Yeah,
and I particularly those multi-condition type products where you have to not only ensure the balance grows every month, but also deposit a certain amount into a linked transaction account and make
yeah,
several number of transactions every month. And I was finding, while it was probably one of the best rates on the market, there was so many months that I was missing out on that bonus rate and then getting virtually nothing. Because I had so much money in that account, even though interest rates were a lot lower then, that was costing me a pretty penny.
yeah,
That's why I'm
100%.
not that surprised that people are swinging back to these sort of BS-free, condition-free savings account products, such as the ones from AMP Bank Go, that while might not be the highest rate on the market, it is still a relatively good interest rate. And maybe over the course of a year, you're actually ending up earning more interest because you are consistently getting that top interest rate each month, as opposed
Yeah.
to getting it sometimes and missing out on other times.
And Dom,
So
it's a,
yeah,
it's, it's a good example, actually. We were doing some
yeah,
research, and if you actually look at if an Australian had $40,000 in savings, which is quite a lot, okay, but it's not far off the median amount Australians save. And if you assumed that they were only doing the conditions for 6 months of the year, 6 months of the 12, and if you actually look at what they would earn on one of these headline rates with conditions versus a fully flexible rate at AMP Bank Go, they would be saving over $1,000. So when you
yeah,
say a
wow,
pretty penny, I would argue it's pretty pennies plus plus plus, right? There's actually quite a lot in that, and $1,000 right now, I think everyone would be really appreciative of. So it goes back to, and that's just half the time not meeting the conditions. And going back to the ACCC report, we said it was actually more like 70%. So if you actually think the amount of value that can be unlocked by choosing the right savings account that is kind of recognizing and rewarding your savings behavior, there's serious money on the table, right? And that's really important. I think we have a responsibility to be able to ensure that Australians are getting the most access to that, particularly in the current environment.
oh yeah, certainly, particularly given like right now, $1,000 could go a long way. I mean, think about how much petrol that could buy.
Yeah, well,
Maybe like
right now it's
thanks.
probably one tank, but I know where you're going. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, for anyone listening that perhaps is looking, okay, maybe I should get a better savings account rate. What's a quick 60-second check that people can do to spot a good savings account rate?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. First of all, work out what kind of saver you are, right? Some people want to put savings in and they want to be able to not touch it. They want the discipline of avoiding temptation and putting it aside. Some people want to kind of save a little bit every month. Some people want to save knowing that they're going to spend it. So I encourage people to ask that kind of what type of saver they are. then I'd encourage them to kind of almost, because there's so many products out there, Denise and Dom, how do they actually kind of sort those products? And I think, kind of propositions or sites like yours at Savings.com.au, they really help people be able to kind of see the list of products that are out there and align them back to their needs. And then it's around kind of checking the rates. But that's the start of the journey. I think that's when you actually choose a product. Back to my earlier tip, I think it's also how do you also stay close to your savings? So I'd encourage people, even if it's just a habit where it's once a month, you go in, check your statement, go into your mobile app. Generally, mobile apps will tell you your rate, and make sure that what you think you're getting, you're actually getting. Because often when people go in thinking, oh, I'm on a good rate, you realize that behind the scenes, something's changed. So stay close, choose the right product, and make sure that it's not just a set and forget product, that you're continually striving to make sure you're getting the most of the value. So savings can be a really rewarding habit, but it's certainly more rewarding when you feel comfortable that you're making the most of your opportunity.
And with talk of a couple more interest rate hikes
Yes.
this year, now that we've got the petrol variable thrown in, we're talking some serious interest rates that you can get for your savings. Given that scenario. And, some banks, and I've been updating the savings rates every day, and there's some sneaky things that go on with, the introductory rate may go up, and that's only for new customers, not helping out much their existing customers with the full rate hike going on. It's a particularly important time to do that, isn't it?
Totally. And I think it goes back to the point that the MP Bank Go research showed that 7 out of 10 Australians don't trust their savings rate. So to your point around this, almost like a shiftiness that's going on, that what you see is not what you get, that whole kind of WYSIWYG kind of statement. So making sure you stay across. But to your point, Denise, when the rates are going up and there's a higher rate for savings, it doesn't mean you need to have a huge amount of savings in your bank account to be able to kind of earn a decent interest. So, even if you're just putting the cents aside, the dollars start to look after themselves. If you're choosing the right product, it helps you build the right discipline, and you start to see it add up. Month on month, the interest starts to compound. And in an increasing rate environment, we want to make sure, everyday Australians are getting the most they can of their hard earned.
Yeah, absolutely. People will be desperate in this current climate to make their dollar stretch further, for sure. John Arnott, really appreciate your time on the Savings Tip Jar podcast. Thanks very much for your insights.
Thanks for joining us, John. It was great to have the chat, and it's just great to remind everyone that that's a very simple savings tip. Yeah. Just have a look and see what you're getting. It's one that applies to everyone.
Go save, guys. Thank you. Cheers.